The air hung heavy with the cloying sweetness of orchids and the musky perfume of decay. Sweat ran down my spine, rivulets carving their way through the grime, and fear clawing at my insides. We'd been patrolling the emerald labyrinth of the Vietnamese jungle for days, the oppressive green canopy swallowing sound and hope with equal ease. Doc, our ever-optimistic medic, whistled a jaunty tune that died abruptly, his gaze snapping to the dense foliage ahead. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his voice tight. We froze, straining our ears to the symphony of rustling leaves and chirping insects. A sound, almost melodic, drifted to us. Not quite a whistle, not quite a song, it slithered through the dense foliage, sending shivers down my spine. "Just wind," muttered Ramirez, our burly sergeant, but his eyes held a flicker of unease. But the sound wasn't the wind. It grew closer, weaving between the ancient trees, taking on a mournful cadence. My throat tightened, the air suddenly too thick to breathe. Then, we saw it. A flicker of movement, a flash of crimson against the emerald backdrop. A woman, or at least what resembled one, emerged from the undergrowth. Her long black hair flowed like ink, framing a face that should have been beautiful, but wasn't. Her eyes, the color of moonlight on stale water, seemed to pierce through us, and her smile, wide and unnatural, revealed needle-like teeth. "The Kindgaw," Ramirez breathed, his voice barely a whisper. "Spirit bride of the jungle." He fumbled for a silver cross hidden beneath his fatigues, his weathered face etched with terror. The Kindgaw tilted her head, her laughter echoing through the trees, a sound like wind chimes made of bones. Panic pricked at the edges of my mind. The stories whispered around campfires, dismissed as superstition and fear, suddenly felt terrifyingly real. The Kindgaw stole the souls of soldiers, leading them astray with her ethereal beauty and haunting song. As if reading my thoughts, she stretched out a skeletal hand, beckoning me forward. My boots seemed to root themselves to the damp earth, but a pull, unseen yet irresistible, tugged me towards her. The melody intensified, wrapping around me like a silken shroud, promising oblivion. "Don't!" Doc screamed, his voice hoarse with urgency. "She feeds on your fear." His words jolted me back to reality. Fear wouldn't save me, but defiance might. With a guttural yell, I ripped the silver dog tag from my neck, the metal burning my skin. Holding it aloft like a shield, I charged forward, not at the Kindgaw, but past her, deeper into the jungle. She screeched, a sound that sent chills to my bone, but I didn't look back. Her song faded behind me, replaced by the panicked shouts of my team. I ran, branches whipping at my face, lungs burning, until I collapsed under a giant banyan tree, gasping for breath. Silence. Had I escaped? Slowly, I turned, searching the darkness. Nothing. I was alone. Relief washed over me, but a creeping dread remained. Had I truly outrun the Kindgaw, or had she merely let me go, playing a game I couldn't understand? I never saw the Kindgaw again. But the melody, like a curse, haunted my dreams. The jungle remained silent, but its secrets lurked beneath the verdant canopy, a constant reminder of the day I faced death, not on the battlefield, but in the heart of a chilling beauty. The war ultimately ended, but the memory of the Kindgaw never truly left me. A reminder that sometimes, the greatest battles are fought not with bullets and bombs, but with the silent strength of the human spirit against the unknown terrors that lurk in the shadows. As I sit here in the dim light of the barracks, memories of the Vietnam War come rushing back to me like a relentless tide. I was just a young Marine fresh out of boot camp when I found myself thrust into the heart of the jungle, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to whisper secrets of death and despair. The year was 1968, and I was part of a platoon tasked with traversing the dense foliage of the Vietnamese jungle, hunting down an elusive enemy that seemed to melt into the shadows like ghosts. We were a motley crew of young men, barely out of our teens, yet already burdened with the weight of war. Our sergeant was a grizzled veteran who had seen more than his fair share of combat, his face etched with lines of exhaustion and determination. He led us with a steely resolve, his voice cutting through the oppressive silence of the jungle like a knife. Our mission was simple, or so they told us. We were to patrol the jungle, rooting out any Viet Cong insurgents that dared to challenge the might of the United States Marine Corps. But as we ventured deeper into the labyrinth of greenery, it became clear that the jungle held secrets far more sinister than we could have ever imagined. The days blurred together into a never-ending cycle of heat, humidity, and fear. Every step we took seemed to echo through the dense undergrowth, our boots sinking into the soft earth with a sickening squelch. The air was thick with the pungent scent of rot and decay, a constant reminder of the harsh reality of war. But it was the nights that were the worst. As darkness descended upon the jungle like a suffocating blanket, we huddled together in our makeshift camp, our rifles clutched tightly in our trembling hands. The jungle came alive with a cacophony of sounds, the eerie cries of nocturnal creatures, the distant rumble of artillery in the distance, and the ever-present rustle of leaves, as unseen figures moved through the darkness. I remember one night in particular, when the jungle seemed to come alive with malevolent intent. We had set up camp in a small clearing, surrounded by a dense thicket of trees that seemed to press in on us from all sides. As we huddled around the flickering light of a dying fire, I could sense the tension in the air, a palpable fear that seemed to grip us all in its icy embrace. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by a blood-curdling scream that seemed to come from the very depths of hell itself. We scrambled to our feet, our hearts pounding in our chests as we searched frantically for the source of the sound. But there was nothing, just the oppressive darkness of the jungle, pressing in on us from all sides. And then we heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps, echoing through the darkness like the approach of death itself. We raised our rifles, ready to face whatever horror lurked in the shadows, but nothing could have prepared us for what emerged from the darkness. It was a figure, shrouded in tattered rags that hung from its emaciated frame like a funeral shroud. Its eyes glowed with a feral intensity, burning with a hatred that seemed to peer straight through to our very souls. And as it advanced towards us with an unnerving grace, we could see that its hands were stained with blood, the blood of those who had dared to venture into its domain. We opened fire without hesitation, the crack of our rifles echoing through the jungle like a thunderous roar. But the figure seemed to shrug off our bullets as if they were nothing, advancing ever closer with a malevolent grin plastered across its twisted face. In that moment, I felt a terror unlike anything I had ever known, a primal fear that threatened to consume me whole. I could feel the darkness closing in around me, suffocating me with its icy embrace. And as the figure lunged towards me with outstretched claws, I closed my eyes and prayed for it to end. But just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished into the darkness, leaving behind nothing but a lingering sense of dread. We stood there in stunned silence, our minds reeling from the encounter, unsure of what had just transpired. In the days that followed, we continued our patrol through the jungle, haunted by the memory of that fateful night. And though we never encountered the figure again, its presence lingered in the shadows, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurked within the heart of the jungle. To this day, I cannot shake the feeling that we were not alone in that jungle, that there were forces at play far beyond our comprehension. And though the war may be long over, the echoes of that night still haunt me, a reminder of the darkness that lies just beyond the edge of human understanding.